Fische wird ledig. Geht zu den Flüssen und predigt den Fischen. Sie schlagen mit den Schwänzen, im Sonnenschein glänzen, im Sonnenschein glänzen. Sie glänzen, sie glänzen, glänzen. Die Karpfen mit Bogen sind Mäulchen erzogen, hatten Mäuler auf Rissen, sich zu zerfließen. Kein Predigt niemalen, den Fischen zu fallen.
Everybody is talking today about that there's no so much difference from different style of music, different medium of music. Music is one, you know, which is, I don't believe, because music has functions. If music is has to be created or performed for a certain purpose, simple, like entertaining, let's say, something. And then if music is instead one wants to shape, touch the spirit of people, that's something else. The feeling of flowing is inherent to the Mahler scherzo. That is kind of a stream of consciousness movement. This is why I decide to comment on that with reference to other music, because Mahler in a way is inhabited by many other musics, and so I decided to take a journey, a harmonic journey that is signaled by reference to well-known or less well-known musical element. The third movement, it's a kind of a homage to Gustav Mahler, and the skeleton, the base, is the scherzo from the Second Symphony of Mahler, and from which many things are proliferating, are generated. So you hear Debussy, Strauss, Beethoven, and so on, and also modern music. It's very flexible. The first 5 measures are in 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Then the 16/3, 1, 2, 3, which is the 4th by Mahler. Then back to 1. And then from there on, there's constant oscillation of tempo. 1, 3, 1, 3. But basically, it's the same, but with a greater elasticity. Let's see. 1. Mahler is a kind of a short circuit between many different things. It's a meeting point. He had an incredible musical mind, an incredible awareness of history, and he was looking to the future. Yeah, the trombones here, that's very important now. The descending trombones, which is Schoenberg, by the way, Opus 16.
Berio, starting the in ruhige fließende Bewegung, the third movement of the Sinfonia, with this violent scale from the trumpets and trombones, written with the same notes but in a different rhythm, makes a statement like, this is a precedent which really proved to be the beginning of the Second Vienna School 12-tone system language. And I think this maniac, which appear and reappear 3 times in Sinfonia, this abrasive chord of the brass, I basically think he wanted to prove that the interaction with Mahler's music plays a main role. As a matter of fact, is an overlapping of 2 lives together, one at the very end of the life of Mahler, and the other one of a kind of relatively young Arnold Schoenberg, which at the end provoke all what happened after the Mahler's death. I mean, this revolution of the 12-tone system.
The 6th measure is in 3. So we go to the 4th symphony by Mahler. Okay. Beginning once more. Very hard.
With Mahler 4, the first bar and half gives you the impression of something like, like a and the other 2 flutes, and so you're already confused. And then comes a theme that you don't expect, that is so, can be Haydn, can be Mozart, and then suddenly a sort of hesitation. So 3 elements in very few bars. And it's clear that Mahler loved very much this classical world, and in the same time, because his world was already so different, he likes to put the knife in, to distort what was beautiful for him.
All the music from the beginning of the century of Mahler and Schoenberg tends to become a documentary, if you want, a documentary of a process, of the general, very deep, tragic transformation that was going through the world in those periods. So, Symphony is also a documentary, if you want, documentary of that period, but exploding toward many other directions. And I think usually they say that modern music, modern harmony started from the first chord of Tristan, but really deep down spiritually and emotionally, modern music started with Mahler. So Mahler is this ship traveling on a boat full of beautiful things, beautiful people and gifts and so on. So it's kind of a voyage to Citere.
Poem all around an endless chain, taking turns to talk. This represents at least 1,000 words. Not counting on. I may well be glad of. And seeing that was Chloe, written in red, counting the seconds, while nothing has happened but the obsession with God.
With the chromatic!
I'm in the air, walls, everything yields, opens, ebbs, flows, the play of waves.
Yes, I feel the moment has come for us to look back if we can and take our bearings.
Yes, I feel the moment has come for me to look back. I must not forget this. I've not forgotten it. But I must have said this before. Since I say it now, they think I'm alive.
From the beginning of the century, music as not only music in everywhere, in any other expression, was broken down, was weakened, this duality, opposition. In classical music too, you have the good and the bad, if you want. You have the consonance, the dissonance. You have the opposition. You have something valuable that always implies the opposite, something that's not valuable. That is I would say that simplifying is the main aspect of classical ideology. While from the beginning of this century, for instance, the opposition are broken down. There's not poetry and prose, but the interesting aspect of poetry and music too is to navigate, to move in between.
Violent. Starting the same tempo. 2, 3.
That is the great message of Schoenberg's work, research, expressiveness, to go further. But he was looking back at the same time. This is why the Schoenberg of those years is the most impressive, the most generous for us. Then in the 20s, of course, he tried to formalize his vision of a 12-tone technique with neoclassical connotation, very different from Stravinsky neoclassicism, of course. Stravinsky neoclassicism was ironic, too, fortunately.
But I must have said this before. Since I say it now, they think I'm alive. Not in a room either. Well, so there is an audience. It's a fantastic public performance.
Comes down to a lifetime. Never know noticed you were waiting. You were waiting alone, that is for sure. Keep going. I should say my own
They think I'm alive. Doesn't know one either. Even that takes time.
Transcription is always present in music, in creativity. I know. Just think of to mention again Stravinsky, one of his most beautiful work, Nos, really masterwork. He went through an incredible stages. He started with a full symphony orchestra, then reduced orchestra, then finally ended with 4 pianos and a choir and percussion. But he went through a series of transcription of the same idea.
Here is the first sketch of Les Noces, which is dated 1913. But had you...
As if we were rooted in that spot, as if we were the earth would have to quake. It isn't there. One doesn't know what it is.
But you all know.
Maybe a kind of competition on the stage. Just 8 female dancers and words falling. You don't know where. Where now? Who now? But now I should say my old lesson if I can remember it. I must not forget this. I've not forgotten it, but I must have said this before, since I say it now.
Stravinsky, for instance, every time he makes reference to other music, be Bach, Tchaikovsky, or whatever, it seems that he wants to measure his distance from those elements. In that aspect, the last neoclassical work by Stravinsky, Agon, is very, very important. I was touched by this idea that the neoclassical experience could be seen in a more positive way. The meaning being that you want to test, to measure the distance that is from you and other music.
If you look carefully at the way Luciano used the 15 composers which form this unicum, which is the third movement of Sinfonia, represent not only his loves, but also his own formation as a composer. Mahler was the central figure in this composition, as it was in Berio's life one of the major points of reference. But then Berg, Debussy, Schoenberg, Hindemith even, which is the great enemy of the Second Vienna School, appear here often with quotations from the Chamber Music number 1. Berlioz, Il Re dell'Eclettismo, one of the greatest eclectical composer, but a genius, Berlioz. Ravel, Beethoven, Stravinsky, Richard Strauss with Rosenkavalier, Brahms, and what about Bach? Bach is not so known how much Berio has been studying Bach, as it is not so much known that in the last 10 years of Mahler's life, Bach was the prime attention in his daily study time. And then Webern, of course, and 2 out of these 15 names, Boulez and Stockhausen.
I must say I prefer that. Oh, you know. I suppose the audience. So there is an audience. It's a public show. You buy your seat and you wait. Perhaps it's free. A free show. You take your seat and you wait for it to begin. Or perhaps it's compulsory. A compulsory show.
Yeah, and the third part is the main text is the Unnameable by Beckett, that is treated like Mahler, like the scales of Mahler, two continuous presents that they emerge, they disappear. This goes both for the music of Mahler and for Beckett text, and the Mahler music proliferates all the time, generates other reference, and Beckett text also goes to common phrases of daily life, if you want, and then also the titles of every musical reference is given. I don't know. So at the moment there is a huge chord toward the end, which is taken from Boulez's Don. The text before says, "I have a present for you." And this big explosion. Everything, all the musical references are described in a very ironical, very light way.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. He's doing a semiquaver. I think he basically beats what he's written. So if he's got 5/16, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 1. Oh, he's subdividing into semiquavers. Yeah.
Na mijn eindexamen in Den Haag, op het conservatorium, in 364, ging ik achter Luciano Berio aan naar Berlijn. Daar had hij een heel chique invitatie. En mocht daar ook leerlingen meenemen. En hebben we dus zo'n beetje een half jaar daar gewoond. Maar ik had toen al in een winkeltje in Den Haag ontdekt platen van een Frans vocaal groepje, Le Double Six, die jazz zongen. Dat waren de eerste platen van een groep die later dus de Swinglesingers ging heten. En die platen nam ik mee naar Berlijn en liet ik aan Luciano horen. Want ik zei, moet je nou luisteren, dit soort zingen, daar kunnen wij mee dealen. Dit zijn nou hartstikke leuke mensen. Afijn, hij hoorde dat. Dat is dus Sinfonia geworden. Ik denk dat de ironie wel een grote rol speelt, sowieso in alle grote kunstwerken. Maar de derde deel van de Sinfonia verwijst in eerste instantie naar afscheid. Dat is absoluut zo. En dat is ook waarschijnlijk ook komt dat door de manier waarop hij met die Mahler omgaat. Hoe het 2 keer heel mooi wegloopt, het stuk. Verdwijnt het als het ware aan. De muziek loopt weg, maar het is ook wat je voelt bij een afscheid. Dat is aan het slot natuurlijk ook zo, het is over. Het is echt afgelopen. Dus dat is de melancholieke kant van het stuk. Dus de sentimentskant van het stuk, denk ik. Met dat woord afscheid omschrijf je het beste wat je voelt als je ernaar luistert.
So, one, ta ta pa, pa pa pa, pa pa pa.
When he quotes somebody else's music, the maximum he do is to transpose it one tune lower or higher, but it's basically very faithfully reproduced. That means really reproducing the music for the time and the way it was written in the time of the composition, and I think it's very, very down to earth in a way, very realistic. But this realism does not mean that the music is realistic. At the contrary, I think it's a kind of nightmare or dream or an apocalypse of sentimenti, of emotions, which go through those quotations.
Wait for the compulsory show to begin. It takes time. You hear a voice. Perhaps it is a recitation, that's the show. Someone reciting, selecting passages, own favorites. Or someone improvising. That's the show. You can't leave. You're afraid to leave. You make the best of it. You try and be reasonable. You came too early. Here we see Latin. It's only beginning. It hasn't begun. He'll appear any moment. He'll begin any moment. That's the show. That's the show. Waiting for the show to the sound of a murmur. You try and be reasonable. Perhaps it's not a voice at all. Perhaps it's the air ascending, descending, flowing, heading, seeking exit, finding none. And the spectators, where are they? You didn't notice in the anguish of waiting. Never noticed you were waiting alone. That is the show for the fools in the palace. Waiting, waiting alone. That is the show.
Ik geloof dat de wals zelf een symbool is voor de ondergang van de tonale muziek, kan je zeggen. Een symbool is van de ondergang van het West-Europese centrisme ook, misschien wel diezelfde tijd. En dat het dus niet voor niks is dat hij die Mahler neemt, wat ook over die tijd gaat. En dat die de wals, het symbool wordt van, wat er zich dan nog zo heeft aangediend, van de apotheose van de tonale muziek. En dat is vooral voor een componist een uitdaging, omdat er, dat citeert hij ook in het stuk, een andere componist die wij allemaal zeer hoog achten en een beetje vergeten wordt door de componisten, Ravel namelijk, zelf al zo'n soort stuk gemaakt heeft, namelijk La Valse. Wat ook gaat over de apotheose, noemt hij dat geloof ik, van de wals.
Very often there's a principle of alliteration, if you want, the same you use in language when you have the same sound into different words, and so it goes from I don't know, from Ravel to Strauss to this. There are all this shifting, moving away from one element to the other one, and then back to Mahler, of course, and then to myself at the same time.
Okay. Sorry. At Peter, second trumpet with mute, a little more. Huh? The Mahler is with mute and Ravel is without mute. Huh? At Peter, a little more present. Do from one before O, please. One before O. Strauss.
I'm interested in having things talking to each other. I think that books, they talk to each other. Musics from different ages, from different culture too, they talk to each other. Voices, they have their own history, and instruments too. So it's nice when you can have the two histories to talk to each other, to comment to each other. This is why I use voice that have an instrumental quality. This is why sometimes the orchestra has a quality that reflects in a way the vocal spectrum.
Waiting alone. That is the show for the fools in the palace. Waiting alone. That is the show. Waiting alone in the restless air for it to begin, while every now and then a familiar passacaglia filters through the other noises, waiting for something to begin. For there to be something else but you. The power to rise, the courage to lead, picking your way through the crossed colours, seeking the cause, losing it again, seeking no longer. You shall overcome the incessant noise, for as Henri says, if this noise would stop, there'd be nothing more to say. You try and be reasonable.
Who would ever dare to accuse Bach to do almost the same with the Matthäus Passion, where one chorale is composed by Bach? All the chorales of the Matthäus Passion are melodies or chorales pre-existing. And he reorchestrated, he had a different harmony on it, but he made clear use of something which was written from somebody else before his time. And isn't that a perfect masterpiece? Who is shining through all this gigantic work? Johann Sebastian Bach, completely, without any doubt. So, moving into our century, the Sinfonia of Berio has the same unique opportunity of proving the piece to be, by now, a classic, and a classic by Luciano Berio.
You try and be reasonable. Perhaps you're blind, probably deaf. The show is over. All is over. Where then is the hand, the helping hand, or merely charitable, or the hired hand? It's a long time coming. Take yours and draw you away. That is the show. Free, gratis, for nothing, waiting alone, blind, deaf. You don't know where. You don't know for what. For a hand to come and draw you away. Somewhere else, where perhaps it's worse. Where now? Keep going. When now? Now!
You know what's this piece about? Everything should be merging like an undistinguished color. A skin which change color just by doubling the skin, not because of wishing to change the color itself. Huh? That's the idea. The orchestration formed the melody in a way of Farben, of colors. You remember Alma Mahler, in the memory of her life, Schoenberg spoke to Mahler in these years, this is written in 1909, about the Klangfarbe Melodie. And she stated that Mahler was totally disinterested, completely indifferent. He said Schoenberg was extremely challenging himself to Mahler, explaining this new concept of this piece. And Mahler was totally unreactive. He just simply cared less about it. But in his own way, he could permit himself to do that. Anyway, because this is the piece which we have been always talking about so much in this 1909 time. Eh? Okay, let's go. Leggerissimo, leggerissimo.
The Opus 16 for Schoenberg is something which opened, even in Schoenberg's life, a new chapter. I think it was at the time a kind of cutting through a new Sprache. And even now, we performed the piece yesterday night, it sounds completely new, fresh, modern, even almost written this year, 1999.
En weg op 4 contrabassi. Weg hier. Don't increase dynamics, please. Don't increase dynamics.
Water is the generator of everything, even in our culture, if you want. We come from water. Then, of course, there is an opposition, fire.
Blue.
Halt!
Hören Sie, dort.
Jesus, das war ein Ton!
Ja, dort.
Es ist das Wasser im Teich. Das Wasser ruft.
Keep going!
What can you expect?
Stop! They don't know who they are either.
Keep going.
Did you hear? Stop! Stop! Keep going! Yes, there!
Jesus, das war ein Ton.
There is I don't know if it's true, but it seems that when Picasso was in Paris, during the Nazi occupation, a German officer went to him and he had Guernica in his studio. He said, asked him, but you did that? No, you did it. And so this is very important, can I say, reaction, deep reaction to things. And music, of course, is sensitive to that. I think a musician must be aware of this, what is surrounding music, without escaping into science and so on, to have roots in real life.
Dat in Sinfonia dit deel zit, dat was Luciano's antwoord op een vooral in Amerika al opkomende stroming van het citatenmuziek. Ook wel een beetje in Europa. Zimmerman schreef al heel vroeg een beroemd citatenstuk. Maar dat kwam omdat Luciano toen net zijn eerste grote klus in Amerika ging doen. En Sinfonia, althans het grote scherzo, is Luciano's antwoord op wat citaten. Dan zal ik dat eens even 100 keer beter doen dan jullie allemaal. Dat is een beetje de moraal voor mij van dat grote deel uit de Sinfonia. Het is veel interessanter om dat nu juist te zien als een enorm grote afspiegeling van wat er zich in die tijd in de wereld voortdeed. En waar hij als een soort bijna eerder nog als een medium van profiteerde en dat teruggaf in deze vorm, wat een briljante vorm is, maar vooral zeer veelzijdig en polyinterpretabel. Dat de kunstenaar in zo'n geval veel meer een spiegel wordt van een hem omringende of haar omringende werkelijkheid dan iets anders. Dan dat de kunstenaar verschuilt, als het ware, gelukkig maar, verdwijnt achter het kunstwerk.
So little I see it, I feel it round me. It folds me, it covers me. If only this voice would stop for a second. It would seem long to me, a second of silence. I would listen. I'd know if it was going to start again. It's late now and he's still talking incessantly, any old thing, repetition after repetition, talking unceasingly in yourself, inside yourself. It's late now, I shall never hear again the lowing cattle, the rush of the stream. In a chamber dimensions unknown I do not move, and never shall again, on long road or short. The fact is, I trouble no one, but I did. And after each group disintegration, the name of Mayakovsky hangs in the clean air.
I was very annoyed in a way when after the performance of Sinfonia in New York, I received many letters also from well-known composers I don't want to mention now, from America, even from Soviet Union, so on, thanking me for opening the door to make reference to other music. But what they did finally was a mishmash, was a kind of a collage with no musical, no deep musical reasons. And in fact, many of those, they continue picking up, like looking in the garbage of music history, picking up things, putting them together with no real sense. The diversities in Mahler's idiom, in Mahler's music, are again, they are talking to each other. This level of music, very low, very simple, then very high. Even the simple things are seen with a very acute, very profound eye.
answer for when we find ourselves face to face now, here. And they remind us that all this can't stop the wars, can't make the old younger or lower the price of bread. Can't stop the wars, can't make the old younger or lower the price of bread. Can't erase solitude or dull the tread outside the door. We can only nod, yes, it's true. And no need to remind, to point, for all is with us always, except perhaps at certain points, here, among these rows of balconies, in a concert or out, perhaps waiting to enter, watching. And tomorrow we'll read that Berio's Alternati made tulips grow in my garden and alter the flow of the ocean currents. We must believe it's true. It must be something else, otherwise it would be quite hopeless. But it is quite hopeless. Unquestioned. But it can't go on. Say it, not knowing what. It's getting late. Where now? When now? I have a present for you. Keep going, page after page. Keep going. Going on. Call that going. Call that on. But wait. He is barely moving now. Almost still. Should I make my introductions? We have Sarah Eden, first soprano, Darren Edwards, second soprano, Rachel Weston, first alto, Heather Kendall, second alto, Gavin Cuthbertson, first tenor, Robert Keeley, second tenor, Mark Williams, first bass, and David Porter Thomas, second bass. But now it's done, it's over, we've had our chance. There was, even for a second, hope of resurrection, or almost. Mein junges Leben hat ein End. We must collect our thoughts, for the unexpected is always upon us, in our rooms, in the street, at the door, on a stage.
I step very often in unknown territory, like Sinfonia in the 30 years ago, and it's important to the feeling of communication must be challenged also by other dimension. Otherwise, becomes a banal experience. I don't like music that confirms what has been already stated, proved, but I like to explore new things, obviously, like all musicians always did in their life.
Erheben die Köpfe wie verständige Geschöpfe auf Gottes Begehren, die Predigt anhören. Predigt geendet, ein jeder sich wendet. Die Hechte bleiben Diebe, die alle viel lieben. Die Predigt hat gefallen, sie bleiben wie alle. Die Krebs gehen zurück, die Stockfisch bleiben dick. Die Karpfen viel fressen, die Predigt vergess, vergess. Die Predigt hat gefallen, sie bleiben